One disadvantage of long-term lease is that the rental rate is usually lower than the daily rate, so you will end up earning less if you lease your property long-term. Another disadvantage is wear and tear of the unit. With long-term rentals, there is more wear and tear because the tenant is occupying the unit for a longer period of time. Hey guys, Alex here. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I will be discussing about rental income. Specifically, what exactly is rental income? What is the difference between short-term and long-term rentals? And what are the pros and cons of each? Which is better for me as an investor? So let me tackle the first question, as a lot of people are really interested in real estate because they have this idea of I'm going to invest in real estate so I can rent it out for passive income. So let me dive into that. What is rental income? So there are two types of income that you can get from real estate. First is appreciation income, which is the increase of the value of your real estate asset over time. So you will only be able to realize this income once you sell your property. A conservative value of real estate appreciation is between 5 to 6% per year, although some properties, especially the ones located near central business districts, appreciate faster. So for example, if you bought a commercial lot in Pueblo Business Park 10 years ago, you would have been able to buy at 8,000 per square. Now, lots in Business Park are at 60,000 per square. So the difference between today's market price, 60,000 per square, and your purchase price at 8,000 per square is appreciation income. The second type of income you get from your real estate investment is rental income. Rental income is any payment you receive for the use or occupation of your property. Expenses of renting property can be deducted from your gross rental income. So a lot of my clients invest in real estate for the purpose of leasing it out. Most condo buyers especially are investors. So they buy a condo not to live in it, but to lease it out. Another client of mine has 3 houses in Xavier Estates. So she leases out one house for 40,000 and 2 other houses at 25,000 each per month. So she earns around 90,000 per month from the rental income of her 3 properties. And take note, her houses are almost always occupied because the rental market in the uptown area is really hot. So what is long-term rental? Long-term rental is a rental term that is at least 6 months or longer, while short-term rental is a rental term that is below 6 months, like from a couple of days to a few weeks to up to 4-5 months. As long as it's below 6 months, it's considered short-term rental. So there are websites that cater specifically to short-term rentals, such as Airbnb, as the usual term is just a few days or a few months. Now, what are the pros and cons of each? So for long-term rentals, like 6 months or more, one advantage is that it entails less work for you as the unit owner because once a renter moves in, he or she is now in charge of maintaining your property. Of course, if there are any huge problems, then the owner will need to step in and fix it. But as for the daily maintenance, that will now be the tenant's responsibility. Another advantage is that since there's already an occupant, you will no longer have to shoulder maintenance costs such as cleaning the property regularly or paying the homeowners dues or utilities. Of course, each lease contract is different, but mostly for my clients, it's the tenant who takes care of paying the Homeowners Association's dues and utilities. One disadvantage of long-term lease is that the rental rate is usually lower than the daily rate, so you will end up earning less if you lease your property long-term. Another disadvantage is wear and tear of the unit. With long-term rentals, there is more wear and tear because the tenant is occupying the unit for a longer period of time. Now let's go to short-term rentals. One advantage of short-term lease is higher income, as daily rates are much higher than monthly rates. For example, a studio unit in Centrio would typically cost between 20 to 25,000 per month to lease out on a monthly basis, but their daily rate is between 1,800 to 2,000 per day. So let's say you multiply 2,000 per day times 20 days in a month, that's already 40,000 per month. So it's actually double the amount that you can earn in a short-term lease. Of course, as the owner, you will need to consider also the expenses that you will need to pay for short-term lease, because especially if the renter just be renting for a couple of days or a few weeks, then you can't charge them the utilities like the electricity or the water bill. So you will need to include that in your budget as expense that needs to be paid off after the tenant has vacated. Another advantage for short-term lease is less wear and tear for your unit, because let's say your studio unit gets occupied a few days to like a week by a client. So most of the time, these types of renters are here in the city on business, or they have an event to attend. So they're usually busy and not going to be staying in the condo or in the unit most of the time. So they won't probably even need to cook in the unit. Plus, after checkout, your cleaning team can come in to check the unit. So if there is any damage, it can be deducted from the deposit and immediately restored. Now let's go to the disadvantage for short-term lease. Now, for short-term lease, one disadvantage is there is more work involved. Since you constantly have to check out clients, check in clients, clean the unit to make sure it's ready for each new tenant. If you have several units, then that would become more sulit because you can hire a property manager or someone to do it for you. Now, what are the expenses to consider? So we have the advance rental and deposit. So usually it's the tenants that need to pay this to the owner before moving in upon signing of the contract. So if it's a 1-year term, usually it's 1 month advance and then 2 months deposit, and the deposit will be returned to the owner upon end of contract. Of course, if there are any damages of the house has to sustain during the rental period, or if there are any unpaid bills, then this will be deducted from the deposit. And then we have move-in fees. So there are some subdivisions that charge move-in fees. We'll discuss more on this later. We have Homeowners Association or condo dues, cleaning fees, maintenance costs. So again, for the advance and deposit, the standard for a 1-year rent is 2 months deposit and 1 month advance. So for example, if the rent for the house or the condo is 20,000 per month, then the tenant will give 60,000 upfront for the 1 month advance and 2 months deposit. The rest of the rental payment is then payable via post-dated check. For a short-term lease, the deposit will depend on how long the rental term is. So if it's a 1 month long rent or term, then the deposit can also be equivalent to 1 month's worth of rent. So if the tenant will rent for 1 month at 20,000 per month, then he will also give a 20,000 peso deposit upon signing of the contract. So the deposit, as I mentioned, will be refunded to the owner 1 month after the rental term has ended. So why 1 month? This is to give time to allow the utility billings to be delivered to the unit, because any unpaid utility bills should be settled by the renter, or it can be deducted from the deposit, as well as any damages the unit may have sustained. Can tenants do fund transfers for rental payments? If it's a short-term lease, then yes, that's possible if the owner is okay with it, or they can also pay in cash. But for long-term leasing, I wouldn't recommend this because the tenant might end up forgetting, or they might end up paying late. And if you're the owner, you have a lot of things to do. I'm sure you're busy. You don't really want to have to remind your tenant to pay the lease on time, right? So it would be much more convenient to have the tenant submit post-dated checks, and then you can just deposit the check each month as it dues. And the next is move-in fee. So some condos have move-in fees, or some subdivisions have move-in fees. For example, in Xavier Estates, there is no move-in fee, but they have a screening fee of 500 pesos. But in other subdivisions in the uptown area, like Phil Life, they have a move-in fee of 2,000 pesos payable to the Homeowners Association. So the move-in fees will really depend on the HOA. It can be between 2,000 to 4,000 pesos, depends on the Homeowners Association. So this may or may not be present. It depends on the Homeowners Association of the village or the condo corp. Now, who pays for the Homeowners Association or condo dues? So there is no definite answer to this. It depends on the negotiation between the renter and the owner. For some of my rentals, it's the owner who pays the dues, but for others as well, it's the tenant. So there's no hard and fast rule as to who should pay it. How much are the HOA dues? So this amount will depend on the subdivision or on the condo corp. So here in subdivision, Homeowners Association dues range from between 3 pesos to 8 pesos per square meter. So the subdivision here with the highest HOA dues is Alegria, as it's a project by Ayala Land Premier. So it's at 8 pesos per square meter per month. So for example, if you have a 300 square meter lot times 8 pesos, that's 2,400 per month. Now, for the condo dues naman, the condo dues here in CDO are between 60 pesos to 98 pesos per month. So again, the amount of the dues will depend on the condo corp. So for example, if you have a 22 square meter unit times 98 pesos per square, that will amount to 2,156 per month. So the dues are then used by the HOA or condo corp for maintenance of the common areas and amenities. Another expense we have to consider is the cleaning fee. So this is usually shouldered by the unit owner to ensure that his or her property is move-in ready. However, if the tenant wants a hotel-like experience and would prefer their unit to be cleaned daily, then the owners may charge a daily cleaning cost that usually goes directly to the cleaning lady. So here, it's around 500 to 1,000 pesos per day depending on the floor area. So, Cagayan de Oro also has a cleaning service for houses called Squeaky Cleaning Service, which charge on a per square meter basis. So, this is super deep cleaning that is ideal for those who really want their house to be scrubbed down from floor to ceiling and then sanitized after. And then we have the maintenance cost. So this is the responsibility of the unit owners to ensure that their units are kept in good condition. So it would be advisable to keep a percentage of your rental income, to set aside a percentage so that you have the budget allocated to maintenance later on. So maintenance cost includes repainting, fixing the cabinets, the roofing, tile work, anything that you need to do to properly maintain your property. So maintenance is something that some property owners struggle with and end up not doing, especially if they are OFWs, because they don't really have someone to do the work for them. But it is vital that your unit be maintained regularly, because good maintenance will ensure that your property will continue to increase in value. Because a unit that is not maintained well will depreciate in value. So although the land increases, the unit will depreciate. Now, how do I know if a property is a good investment? So there are two common ways to do it. First is the 1% rule. This easy and straightforward formula multiplies the price of the real estate property when you bought it, plus all the repair costs that you have incurred by 1%. So this resulting figure should be the minimum monthly rent that you should charge. For example, you bought a condo for 3 million. You multiply that by 1%, that's 30,000 per month. This means you should be able to rent out your unit for 30,000 per month to make it a worthy investment. You should also consider the mortgage of your unit. So you need to have a monthly mortgage that is less than 30,000 per month to be able to profit from your investment. So usually the 1% rule is used more often for commercial property rather than residential property. The more common way to price residential rental properties is through the market rate. So the market rate is basically checking the rental rates of similar units in the market and pricing your units at a similar cost. For example, the regular rental rate for a studio unit in CDO is between 20,000 to 25,000 per month. So 20,000 is usually for unfurnished units, while 25,000 is for furnished and upgraded units. So meaning it's already fully furnished and, with Wi-Fi, ready for occupancy. So what the tenant needs to do is to just move in and he will be able to enjoy everything that the owner has prepared for him. So you need to price your own unit between this range to stay competitive, right? Because if you price it, let's say 30,000, which is above the market price, then chances are no one will rent your unit, or it would be really hard to do so. So which is better for me as an investor? Short-term or long-term lease? First, it depends on your resources and investment strategy. If you are an OFW and you don't really have the time or resources to manage your unit, then you're better off with long-term lease. It might earn less, but you'll also be assured of a long-term tenant, and it will also mean less work on your part. For those who are based in the same city where your rental properties are, better to go with short-term rentals because you're just here, you have the resources and capabilities to look after your unit. For example, I have a friend who owns 5 units in Century Tower. So she rents out all her units on short-term lease only. So she doesn't actually like long-term rentals. She prefers short-term because she gets to own more. And all her 5 units are located in the same building. According to her, she likes short-term rentals because it's less wear and tear, and yeah, she gets to earn more. And then aside from that, she also does not allow cooking in her unit. So there's no cooktop in her unit. There's a microwave, there's a refrigerator, there's a really good bed as well, but no cooktop so that the tenants cannot cook, and at the same time, better maintenance for the unit because you don't there's no smell that gets left behind due to the tenants cooking when they moved out. So before the pandemic, CDO had a condo rental occupancy rate of between 80 to 100%. And right now, it's getting back to that same level. So another thing that you should consider as an investor is the location of your properties. So it's better for your rental properties to be located all in one area, so it will be easy for you to check and maintain your properties in one go. Just like my friend who invested in 5 units, all in Century Tower. So it's easy for her cleaning lady to maintain the units and facilitate the checking in and checking out of the tenants. Compared to if you owned 5 units in 5 different condominiums, and then the other condos are located in the uptown area, there are some located downtown, so it would be harder for you to maintain it. And that's it for today's vlog. So what about you? Which do you prefer? Are you going to go for long-term rentals or short-term rentals? Let me know in the comment section below.